When people think of or describe financial independence and early retirement, a lot of people envision sort of just kind of waking up late in the day, doing whatever you want, traveling a lot, not working pretty much at all. I'm not saying that everybody is envisioning that or desiring that, but certainly my first thought and kind of introduction to the financial independence movement and working towards that goal was just not wanting to do my corporate job or not wanting to work a 9-to-5 job and that sort of thing. And I guess my natural thought was, well, that means I'm kind of not doing anything. This was pretty much right as I graduated college and started working, and pretty much immediately was like, boy, this is not enjoyable. And as I've progressed in my financial independence journey and as I'm working towards $1 million saved and invested before I turn 40, the definition of the goal of financial independence for me and what I'm working towards has shifted so drastically. Part of what I am working on as part of talking about my journey is trying to figure out exactly what I do want. But in this video, I want to talk a little bit about what I've learned or figured out about myself so far over the 10 years or so that I've been out of college and working towards financial independence. So as I said, for many people, the idea of financial independence is sort of, waking up late in the day and traveling and doing essentially whatever you want in a sort of a leisurely way. And don't get me wrong, there is a part of me that wants to do those sort of things, and I probably, once I reach that goal, will spend some time doing that. Even now, I would really, really like to take a sabbatical and sort of just, do whatever I want. But as I'm working towards this, I'm realizing that really what my goal is the autonomy to do exactly the type of work that I want in any given moment without worrying about how it's going to impact my finances or monetizing it in a way that, can keep up a certain lifestyle or something like that. I mentioned in my first video that I have a ton of interests and things that I'd like to work towards and work on. And as I reflect on those things, a lot of them are or could be considered jobs. I mean, something like working on old cars and kind of restoring is probably too strong of a word for my abilities, but keeping old cars and things like that on the road and kind of stewarding old machines into the future and keeping them running and usable so that, one, we don't have to produce as many new cars, and two, people get to enjoy these machines that were made in a time when capitalism hadn't totally ruined the car making experience and things were made to a spec instead of to a budget. And so, for instance, with that kind of desire, I can do something like helping other folks out that have old cars and maybe are not able to do a particular type of job or don't have the skills or the time to do some sort of job on their vehicle. I'll give an example with my car. It's a 90s Mercedes that has one of the world's first fully retractable, fully automated soft tops. And it's powered by 11 hydraulic cylinders on the model year that I have. And those cylinders inevitably will fail. Now, I was able to replace the cylinders on my car. It took me a couple of weekends to do. And I've since met friends and acquaintances who have similar cars, and they say, hey, boy, I would definitely pay you to do mine. And, I think to myself, and I've said it to them, the amount of money that you would have to pay me to make it worth giving up the short amount of free time that I have, you might as well take it to a mechanic and they'll do it for, the same price, because it was such a, a grueling process and so time consuming. I don't want to do it again. But in a situation where I am not tied to a 9-to-5 and I don't have, constraints around my time and needing to make a certain amount of income, I would very much enjoy doing that. And that, one, the type of work, and two, again, the mission of, kind of keeping the cars on the road, so to speak. I am certainly not saying that I would make any sort of, a long-term sustainable business out of it. But that's the entire point, is there's so many things that I would like to try out and I would like to do that I don't expect or want to make a full-time job or a full-time business or anything like that out of it. But I would like to do, and maybe I earn a few bucks and it keeps me afloat or covers my expenses for a given month. That's what I'm working towards. That is what I would like to do. Another example is photography. I am very into film photography. I shot digital photography for many years and then kind of transferred over to film photography in the last 3 or 4 years. Photography is something that plenty of people get paid pretty good money to do. Obviously, there are full-time professional photographers who, make a living out of it and support families on it. But for me, I would love to be able to do that, but not be dependent on it earning me a $100,000 salary, let's say, or being concerned with shooting a type of photography that I'm not super interested in. For example, wedding photographers are, I don't know the statistics on this exactly, but I would imagine many professional photographers or people who earn a living as a photographer focus a lot on weddings. That's not something that I'm interested in. But if I was doing it for paid work in a way that I don't have to, support myself or support a family on, I could do, smaller things, smaller scale things. I could do just engagements or just family shoots, or, shoot my shot with brand photography and things like that. I just, as a hobby and, as something that I enjoy, I do a lot of automotive photography, and I would love to be able to, once in a while do a paid shoot with that, but not expecting it to be a full-time career or $100,000 income type of job. I'll take it a step further, and even with the type of work that I do in my 9-to-5 job, there's aspects of it that I really enjoy, and I think I would really enjoy doing it in a more autonomous setting. A friend of a friend was looking to acquire a business and reached out to me to help with sort of the pre-purchase diligence phase, which is something that I used to do in one of my old jobs. It didn't end up kind of coming to fruition, but I was very excited about the idea of doing this, of helping somebody who was looking to acquire a business, on a smaller scale, and using my skills and expertise to help them figure out what they should be looking out for and things like that. But I want to do all these things without the pressure of saying I need to make $100,000 a year so that I have enough to support myself and have enough to save for retirement and all those things. I want to be able to do all these different things and these goals and this type of work that I would like to do without the pressure of needing it to be a full-time income. And even thinking about non-income generating work, things that I just want to do and develop skills at and, learn more about or work towards mastery in. Mastery maybe is too strong of a word for what I'm looking for, but there's just so many different things that I want to try and do. I mean, this is a really silly example, and there are likely people who may come across this who are in the industry and they'd say you have no idea what you're talking about. It's not an enjoyable job, and that's probably true. But home espresso and I'm very into the home barista scene, and I do my own latte art and things like that. And a lot of my free time I spend at cafes and coffee shops, chatting with other regulars and chatting with the baristas, and something like a job like that, even doing it for a short time, I think would be really interesting. What I find so frustrating and disdainful about the way that our society is set up is you go to school for something and you're just locked into a career path. And that's considered successful. If you are, if somebody like myself who went to school for something and is working by all definitions, by all, kind of standard definitions, a successful career at, what they went to school for, you're considered a successful person. And that's to me not the way of life that I want to have. Some people really enjoy it. And I'm not knocking that at all. I'm not saying you're a corporate cuck or something like that if you enjoy your 9 to 5 job. That's great. But what frustrates me is that's like the only quote unquote normal path or path that our society is set up for. If you are a person who just has a multitude of interests and wants to, be a beginner at certain things and improve at different areas, or even have what I've heard described of as a portfolio career where you're trying different things and you maybe, have a little bit of income from one thing and a little bit of income from another thing, it's just more of an uphill battle. That, a lot of companies, even in the corporate world, even in a given field, you're almost influenced to be a specialist in whatever it may be within your genre of career. So for myself, I work in corporate finance, as it would be loosely defined. Even within that, it's oh well, what industries do you specialize in, or what type of finance have you worked in? Are you internal? Do you do consulting? Are you FP&A, or are you more well versed in accounting than this person who's more well versed in taxes, or whatever the subspecialty may be. Even in something like that is already a specialization, you're kind of forced to specialize even further. I had an interview last week with a company that they were similar to the company that I work for, but they only do one type of industry, which was kind of mind-blowing to me, in that we're already in a specialized field, and then you're taking it even further and saying, no, you can only do this type of industry. You can only serve these kind of clients. If you sit and think about that, that's sort of antithetical to what it is to be a human, and wanting to develop and learn and further your experience. But it helps, a company to be more profitable if you're specialized, and that's what's important. Anyway, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent there, but really the takeaway that I kind of want to have here is I personally believe that human beings are more fulfilled when you're working towards something, but we have perverted what working towards something means so much in our highly capitalistic society that is driven by, profitability above all else, that it's sort of ruined the pursuit of working towards something and developing skills for a lot of people. But my takeaway is, you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. You want to have that pursuit and development of skills and working towards something and creating things and building things, but not necessarily in a way that is tied to a 9 to 5 job, or in a way that is pressure filled and that you're relying on to pay your bills or cover rent or whatever it may be. And as I work towards financial independence, I'm trying to figure out how I can fit those pursuits into my life sooner than later. And if I can get to a point where whatever my interests are earn me enough money to cover my expenses, but then I have my nest egg of $1 million saved, or whatever number I get to, then I'm good. I don't need to save more because I'm covering my expenses, and I'm happy with the type of lifestyle that I'm living because I'm fulfilled from the type of work that I'm doing. And then if I can, reach full financial independence and not need to earn a dime, even better. Depending on the approach here, some people in the fire community call, it baristaFI because you're just covering your expenses, or coastFI because you have your full-time job still, but you're not contributing to, your investments anymore. I wanted to talk about it more in general terms and more, kind of what that means practically for yourself, and what it might mean for your fulfillment and, your autonomy and that sort of thing. Anyway, I hope that you got something out of this, and maybe it gave you a spark of inspiration, or, kind of reframed your thoughts about what it means to improve your personal finances, whether that's, kind of on a smaller scale, or whether it's in pursuit of full financial independence. I hope this gave you another way to think about that journey and think about what it is that you're working towards. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to the next topic.